Hello everyone, and welcome to today's session. I want you to picture a scenario that almost every single one of us has experienced. You are sitting in your car. Your hands are gripping the steering wheel. You are staring at a seemingly endless sea of red brake lights stretching out to the horizon. You're stuck in rush hour traffic, you're going to be late, and your stress levels are through the roof. As you sit there inching forward at snail's pace, you look to the side of the highway and think the most logical, natural thought in the world. Why don't they just add another lane? If this road were wider, we wouldn't be stuck in this mess. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? If you have too much water and your pipe is overflowing, you get a bigger pipe. If your closet is too full of clothes, you buy a bigger closet. So if your city has too many cars, you should build a bigger, wider road. But here is the mind-bending reality of urban economics. Building more roads to cure traffic congestion is like loosening your belt to cure obesity. It does not solve the root problem. It only encourages further expansion. Today, we are going to dive deep into the fascinating, counterintuitive world of traffic economics. To understand traffic, we first have to understand basic economics, specifically the law of demand. The law of demand states a very simple truth. When the cost of something goes down, people consume more of it. When flat-screen TVs go on a massive discount for Black Friday, they fly off the shelves. But when we talk about driving on a public highway, there is no price tag at the entrance. You don't hand over a $20 bill every time you merge onto the freeway. So what is the cost of driving? The cost is time. When a highway is heavily congested, the price of using that highway is very high because it costs you an hour of your life to get to work. Because the price is high, people naturally ration their use of it. They might decide to leave for work an hour earlier, they might take the train, they might carpool, or they might just decide to work from home. Now, imagine the government comes in and adds 2 shiny new lanes to that highway. Suddenly, the traffic flows beautifully. The 1-hour commute drops to 20 minutes. The cost of using that road has just plummeted. What happens when the cost of good drops? People consume more of it. This brings us to our first major economic concept, latent demand. Latent demand refers to all the people who want to drive on that road previously, but chose not to because the traffic was too terrible. The moment the road is widened and the traffic speeds up, all of those people suddenly grab their car keys. When all of those new drivers hit the newly widened road, we experience a phenomenon called induced demand. Induced demand means that the supply of a new resource actually creates the demand for it. In the context of traffic, building new roads creates new drivers. Let's look at the most famous, most spectacular real-world example of induced demand, the Katy Freeway in Houston, Texas. A little over a decade ago, Houston had a massive traffic problem on the Interstate 10 Katy Freeway. The congestion was legendary. So the government did what everyone intuitively thought was right. They decided to expand the freeway. And they didn't just add 1 lane. They spent $2.8 billion to expand the Katy Freeway to an astonishing 26 lanes at its widest point. It became the widest freeway in the entire world. The politicians cut the ribbon, patted themselves on the back, and promised the citizens of Houston that their traffic nightmares were over. What happened? Within just a few years of the expansion opening, the morning commute times actually increased. By 2014, commuting on the Katy Freeway took 30% longer in the morning and 55% longer in the evening than it did before the $2.8 billion expansion. How is this possible? Because of induced demand. The wide, seemingly empty road signaled to everyone in the region. Driving is fast and easy now. People who used to take the bus bought cars. People who used to drive on local side streets moved over to the massive freeway. But more importantly, over the long term, the wider road changed the way the city was built. Real estate developers looked at the fast freeway and built massive new suburban neighborhoods 30 miles outside the city, knowing people would use the Katy Freeway to commute. Within a few years, those 26 lanes were completely filled with cars, leaving Houston with a $2.8 billion strip of concrete that functioned as the world's widest parking lot. To break down exactly how an empty new road fills up so quickly, an economist named Anthony Downs coined a brilliant concept known as the Law of Triple Convergence. Downs explained that when a major commuting highway is widened and congestion is temporarily cleared, traffic converges on that new space from three different directions almost immediately. 1. Spatial convergence, the route switchers. Before the road was widened, many drivers avoided the highway because it was a nightmare. They took parallel local roads, winding through neighborhoods and side streets to get to their destination. The moment they hear the highway is clear, they abandon the side streets and converge on the new highway. The highway fills up. 2. Time convergence, the time switchers. Think about your own habits. Have you ever woken up at 5:30 a.m. just to beat the traffic? Or stayed at the office until 7 p.m. to let rush hour die down? These are time switchers. They are traveling at inconvenient times because the highway is too crowded at 8 a.m. When the new lanes open, they realize they don't have to wake up in the dark anymore. They all converge on the highway at the exact same peak hour, the most desirable time to travel. The highway fills up. 3. Modal convergence, the transport switchers. This is the most damaging convergence. Before the expansion, a woman named Sarah took the commuter train to work. She likes driving, but the train is faster because the highway is always jammed. When the highway gets widened, Sarah realizes driving is now 10 minutes faster than the train. She abandons public transit and gets into her car. When thousands of Sarahs do this, public transit loses funding, train services decrease, and even more people are forced to drive. The highway fills up. Because of this triple convergence, anytime you add capacity to a congested road in a growing city, that capacity will inevitably be devoured by new traffic until the road is just as jammed as it was before. Now, we're going to dive a little deeper into a concept that sounds like magic, but is pure network economics. It is called Braess's paradox, named after the German mathematician Dietrich Braess. Induced demand tells us that adding roads creates more traffic. But Braess's paradox goes one step further. It proves that in complex networks, adding a new shortcut can actually make the commute slower for every single person. Conversely, closing a road can make everyone arrive faster. How does this work? It comes down to human selfishness. When we drive, we do not care about optimizing the traffic flow for the whole city. We only care about ourselves. We look at our GPS, we see the fastest route for our specific car, and we take it. Imagine a network of roads where everyone has found a delicate balance. Now, the city builds a brand new super shortcut right through the middle. Every single driver looks at their GPS and thinks, wow, if I take that shortcut, I will save 10 minutes. Because everyone is acting selfishly and independently, every single driver rushes for the shortcut. The new shortcut instantly becomes a massive bottleneck. The roads leading into the shortcut become jammed. The roads leading out of it become jammed. Because everyone is fighting for the exact same fast route, the overall flow of the network collapses, and everyone ends up taking longer than they did before the shortcut existed. Let me give you two stunning real-world examples of Braess's paradox in action, where the opposite happened, where destroying a road actually improved traffic. Example 1. New York City, 1990. For Earth Day in 1990, New York City decided to close 42nd Street, which is one of the busiest, most congested crosstown streets in Manhattan. The media panicked. Traffic experts predicted absolute doomsday gridlock. They warned that cars would spill over into all the other streets and paralyze the city. The day came they closed the street, and traffic flow actually improved. By removing the highly contested shortcut of 42nd Street, drivers were forced to disperse across a wider variety of alternative routes. The network balanced itself out, and the terrible bottlenecks disappeared. Example 2. Seoul, South Korea. In the early 2000s, the city of Seoul had a massive, aging, 6-lane elevated highway cutting right through the heart of the city. It carried 160,000 cars a day. The mayor made the radical decision to tear the entire highway down and restore the Cheonggyecheon River that used to flow beneath it. Again, critics predicted traffic Armageddon. How could you remove a road that carried 160,000 cars and not cause a disaster? But the highway was torn down, a beautiful public park and river walk was built in its place, and citywide traffic actually got better. People adapted. They changed their routes, they shifted their travel times, and many realized that taking the newly improved subway system was simply better than driving. Today, it is one of the most successful urban renewal projects in modern history. If building bigger roads makes traffic worse, and closing roads can sometimes make it better, how do we actually solve traffic congestion in growing cities? The answer lies in moving away from the goal of moving cars and focusing on the goal of moving people. Solution 1. Geometry and space efficiency. A car is an incredibly space-inefficient way to move a human being. A typical car requires a massive rectangle of asphalt to move just 1 or 2 people. When you look at a traffic jam, you aren't actually looking at a lot of people. You're looking at a lot of empty metal boxes taking up space. A single bus can take 40 to 60 cars off the road. A dedicated train line can move the equivalent of 10 lanes of highway traffic in a fraction of a space. To fix traffic, cities must provide high-quality, reliable, and fast alternatives to driving. If the train is faster and more comfortable than sitting in a traffic jam, people will take the train. Solution 2. Congestion pricing. Remember earlier when we said the only cost of driving is time? Economics tells us that if a resource is free, people will overuse it. To manage a valuable resource like road space, cities must price it correctly. This is called congestion pricing. Cities like London, Stockholm, and Singapore charge drivers a fee to enter the busiest parts of the city during peak hours. The results are immediate and dramatic. When you charge a fee, you eliminate the discretionary drivers, the people who didn't really need to drive at that exact time. The roads clear up for the delivery trucks, emergency vehicles, and people who truly have no other option. The money generated from the fee is then reinvested directly into making the public transit system world-class. It is a win-win for urban mobility. To wrap up today's session, I want us to fundamentally shift how we view urban transportation. For the last 70 years, we have been trapped in a vicious cycle. We see traffic, we build a wider road, the road fills up with new cars, we get more traffic, and then we build an even wider road. It has destroyed neighborhoods, increased pollution, and cost trillions of dollars globally, all without solving the core problem. Traffic congestion is not an engineering problem that can be solved with more asphalt. It is an economic problem driven by human behavior, supply, and demand. The next time you're stuck in rush hour traffic, looking at the side of the highway and wishing they would just add one more lane, I want you to remember the Katy Freeway. I want you to remember induced demand and Braess's paradox. You aren't stuck in traffic. You are the traffic. And the only way to truly escape the traffic trap is to design cities for people, not just for cars. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.